Alright, peace to the planet. I go by the name of John Ikondja, and a warm welcome to the podcast interview right here on Juvenile Media. We continue to bring you conversations of young people, and we are doing amazing things, interviewing young people who are doing amazing things, amazing careers, and our aim is to get you inspired and motivated in pursuit of achieving great things in life. So my name is John Ikondja, like I said earlier, and indeed I'm being supported by a group of great young people, my brothers in fact, who are bringing us this great production. Our guest today, the First Lady of Window. Can I call you that?
No.
Oh my word, okay. There we go. We have Miss Taimi Amupanda. She's an admitted legal practitioner of the High Court and Supreme Court of the Republic of Namibia, Director at Tisana Manje, and Co-Board of Trustees, member of Namibia Health Plan. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Oh man, it's good to have you. Perhaps as an icebreaker, who would you tell us who Miss Taimi is?
Well, who's Taimi? I am... Sorry, I'm a girl. Yes, I still refer to myself as a girl. Yes.
No.
Yes. Look, Taimi is... a young woman from northern Namibia. I grew up in Oshakati.
Okay.
I am a lawyer by profession. I'm a mother. I'm a wife, a sister, a daughter, and a friend. So yeah, that's Taimi.
She grew up where? Where did this Taimi grow up, and how did she end up where she is right now?
Like I said, I grew up in Oshakati, right where the Oshakati Supreme Court sits. That's where my house used to be. They used to have these caravans that used to sit somewhere in a line. I think there were 6 or 7 of them.
Okay.
So I grew up there playing in the soccer field right opposite the caravans. My dad used to work in a hospital, so the hospital was right opposite. That was really like my playground. I mean, yeah. And yeah, I think those grounds of Oshakati really shaped me. I schooled at Arundu Secondary School, and then completed my high school at Gabriel Tapopi. So that was just the next town, which is Songwediva. So I'm really a northerner. Yes, and a proud one at that.
And when did you move to Windhoek?
First year university. That was 2010.
Nice.
Yeah. So yes.
And then you ended up studying law. Straight into it?
Yes, straight into it.
Was that out of curiosity of the court opposite your house?
No, I actually didn't even know that they were going to build the High Court there at that time.
Oh, so it wasn't there at that time?
No, it wasn't. I mean, when I left, we stayed there until I think 2016 was... No, not 2000. 2006 was when we moved from there. And then they were building something, but I didn't know what it was. So, and then we moved to where NHE is in Oshakati.
Okay.
And I think my inspiration for law came when I started debating. That was 2007. All the way through university.
It seems like every lawyer was a debater. Eh? From all of my friends who are also lawyers are just debaters. I don't know what's the thing with. But then how do you correlate debating? Sorry to cut you off, by the way. How do you correlate, or where's the interest between law and debating? How does it just translate to law at the later stage? What's your opinion
I think it doesn't automatically translate to law. I've had debaters who are now engineers and accountants.
Okay.
But I think for the bulk of debaters, it's the reasoning behind debate, because it requires you to think fast, to reason well, and be convincing. Which is a lot like being in court.
In law, yes,
yeah.
Definitely.
And well, yeah.
Okay. So you ended up studying law at UNAM?
Yes. That was a good 5 years, because at the time that I came to the university, they had what they call the B.Juris program for 3 years, and then LLB for the remainder of your 2 years. So in total, you spend 5 years in university to get your honors degree. So yeah, I enrolled 2010. I finished in 2014. Yeah, and that was the end of 5 gruesome years of case law. And
let's go through those years quickly. How would you describe the journey of tertiary school, studying law, being a young student at UNAM? How was that whole journey like?
It was interesting, filled with hunger on most days.
Oh wow!
And also filled with new experiences. Like I said, I debated all the way through university.
Okay.
So we always had 1 or 2 tournaments that were outside Namibia at the time.
Yeah.
And that was exciting because then you always got to travel and got to meet new people and have new experiences. So that was exciting. And I think also the fact that I went to university with most of my friends from high school and who ended up studying law with me, it was challenging, but it was also a familiar environment because you then had people that you knew around you.
Right.
So there was always a lot of motivation, a lot of inspiration from those that you grew up with, who understood you, and there was always room to call the other one out if you were going off the rails. So yeah, that was a very good support system, I must say.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you are now a director. What does it mean to be a director, first of all? Director at the Sisana Manje & Co. I love that title. I really want to have such a title in the future, by the way, it's really big. How would you describe this whole title?
It's a huge responsibility.
Is it?
Yes, obviously, because it then automatically translates into you having a fiduciary duty towards the company to act in its best interest, to not be conflicted, and to really put the company first in many things. I think when you're an associate at any law firm, you come to work and then you go home and then you're like, if I get paid, yay, I must get paid because
exactly,
I work.
Yeah, of course.
But like now you work for the company, but then you also run the company and you're also responsible for many areas involving the company. So you carry a much bigger responsibility, and you sort of are required to step up in terms of taking ownership of the company. I think it's easy to be employed and be like, I could always leave tomorrow if things didn't go my way or whatever. But like when you are put in that position of trust, the roles really do change, the responsibilities change, your mindset changes, and some people like to say the money changes as well, but I think that's really a very minor aspect of it, because I think it also builds you as a person, as a leader, and it builds your character as well, because of the amount of responsibility that is now placed upon you. And I think for me it's the growth aspect. The fact that I'm young and still learning, and there's always been this idea when we were at university that we would one day own law firms and run them.
Absolutely.
And that sounded great at the time, but you then get an opportunity like this and you realize that it's much bigger than yourself. And it's not just what you thought it would be in university. You thought it would just be your name on the letterhead shining director and then yay, but the responsibility is much greater than the year. Of course, the returns are also greater when because the satisfaction is greater when you do well as a company, in terms of like all of your directors. But it requires effort, it requires commitment, it requires you to rededicate yourself from a different position as opposed to when you're an associate. And I think maybe that's part of the growth that the company tries to build amongst young people. So
you work closely with Sisa. That's basically what the director would do.
Yes, but I mean it's a law firm, so generally you work close with everyone else in terms of legal practitioners in the firm. So I don't think that changes simply because you become a director. I think what changes is more your responsibility and the role you have to play in the firm, because when you're an associate, you're just required to do your job and report back.
Absolutely.
All
right. So how's it like working with Sisana Manje?
It's great. I think anyone who knows me knows that I speak very highly of my boss.
Okay.
Because I mean, he's really a great source of inspiration.
Yeah.
I've worked at this firm for 6 years now, and I am yet to come earlier than him to the office. And I think that's what a great leader is. He leads by example. So he always has you checking yourself and setting very high standard against which you can measure yourself. Am I performing well? Am I delivering? You know, and then you ask yourself that compared to this family man who's also relatively busy, how am I making myself an asset to this law firm? And I think he's done amazingly well over the years in showing that you can really be a great lawyer and you can still be a very good family man. You just need to be able to, you know, apportion your time.
Interesting. What inspires you to do such great things in life? Having gone so far, you have such an interesting story to where you've ended up right now. But what inspires you?
What inspires me? I think it's that my life is so ordinary. And I do what people may perceive as extraordinary, depending on where you are standing. Is that I don't come from special circumstances. My mom was a school teacher. My father was a superintendent at the laundry department in the hospital. He's a mechanic by profession, so he still fixes cars in retirement. And they've done so well as civil servants in their time. I think they've provided us, my siblings and I, a decent livelihood. And I think it was their hard work that has really inspired me to do and be greater, because they were then able to provide better opportunities than they had. And I think I have absolutely no excuse to have not done well with my life, because I can't say that they didn't send me to school. I can't say that they didn't support me when I needed their support. In fact, they were very supportive of my debating career. They were supportive of my choice to do law because I was always the loud mouth in the house.
That's a difficult one, hey? Especially for black parents. It was really difficult. How did they accept it? How did they understand what law was? I mean, I understand because your mom was a teacher at the time. Obviously, she must have been educated. But
they both understood what law meant, and of course, it wasn't an easy one to accept, because you have to understand that being a lawyer generally means that you advocate for people's rights. And having grown up in the apartheid era, there was still this conception that you could possibly die from doing what you do, because a great misunderstanding amongst our people is that if you're a lawyer, you are a criminal lawyer and therefore are representing criminals. So that was always
you lie a lot, pretty much.
Yes. So that was always an aspect, but I think it was also the understanding that I've always made my own choices, in the sense that if I decided that I was going to do something and I was all in, the best would be to just support it, because I wasn't all of a sudden going to change and say I'm now going to do medicine, or that I was now going to be a chartered accountant or whatever else was available in that time. I think it was just the understanding that in any case, law is good enough career, and well, at least I wasn't choosing to just do nothing, or take a gap year and think about my life. I think the idea that I had just chosen a career and it was something, I guess, by those standards acceptable at the time. They accepted it and they supported it, and there were also a lot of like scholarships and bursaries available at the time, so it was
So you had no other choice to do another course. Law was the right one, number one and number 0.
Yes. I mean,
at no point did you feel like giving up on it and then taking another course?
No, absolutely not.
Wow.
Because look, it's one of those things where in my time, law was a versatile career, and it still is, in the sense that you could finish and choose to just teach English also.
Okay.
Yeah. So so it was one of those things where I was like, I'm going to do law. And if court doesn't work out for me, then we can go corporate. And if corporate doesn't work out for me, I'll find something to do with my law degree.
Okay.
In the sense that it wasn't limiting. I could be an entrepreneur if I had wanted to be an entrepreneur. The idea was that because I come from a household that respected education, I had to go to university.
Yes.
And I had to do something. Luckily for me, that was law. But ultimately, what I ended up doing with that law degree was irrelevant to them, because I remember having conversations with my parents, and they weren't much concerned about the fact that I'll end up in a courtroom.
Right.
It was just the fact that I would have a qualification, and if I decided to do anything else, I would always have a qualification to fall back on.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, where did I miss my question now? Wow, I was so stuck onto the story. But it seems that you also have interest in public speaking as well. I understand you also do director of ceremonies at both happy and sad events. Surprisingly, how did this interest develop?
I don't think it's. I don't think we can call it an interest.
Really?
No, we cannot call it an interest.
What do you call it?
I think it's more like. Well, I don't know the English word for it yet, but it's one of those things where growing up, my mom was always a director of ceremonies at an event, at a family function, at a friend's family function, or, all of that. And I think naturally, as a parent, you must pass down something to your children. And I think maybe she nurtured me into that direction, to always try and speak to fill the gap. At least that was her teaching, to fill the gap for others.
Okay.
At sad events, because someone has to do it, and at happy events because they're happy events and they need some sort of direction. But I think it also then just developed because of the debating.
Okay.
The fact that I could speak in front of people.
Confidently.
No one ever believes that I'm nervous, but I always am. And that the opportunity always presents itself. I think it's more the opportunity that someone would always be like, oh, I need you to just direct this for me, and I'd be like, oh, okay, I would be happy to. So yeah, and over time it became one of those things that I do. I just do, and sometimes I enjoy it, obviously for happy functions, because it's really nice. And I think for the sad ones, I do because I'm reminded that someone has to. Yeah.
So, take us through. Just give us a few tips of what you'd or what one should consider saying, or how they should speak at an event. What are your key takeaways, or just the tips that you always consider? You know what? I should speak in this voice when I'm speaking at an event, or I should be lively. What character do you bring with all the time when you're doing a director of ceremonies?
I think it's to make yourself an audience before you are a speaker.
How?
To ask yourself what the audience would want to hear. Because then that way you are not too boring, and you are not too sad if it's a sad event, and you are not too happy even if you are directing a happy event.
Okay.
I think at least that's what I do, and most of the time it works well. I mean, you have to understand that these are things that you learn through experience, in the sense that I'm generally a very fast speaker. I used to speak in a way that, like, not the whole room can understand what I'm saying. And then over time, you have to learn to tone it down, speak to your audience, and understand your audience. So it's always speaking from a position where you understand the audience you are speaking to. If you are speaking in court, for example, you are speaking to one judge, there's no need to scream. If you go to a kindergarten and you are speaking to kids, you speak in a different voice. If you are at a funeral or directing a wake, you speak in a way that people can relate to your voice in their sadness, but also can be uplifted by your spirit, because I mean, you can't be too sad to a point where people can trace the sound of a cry in your voice.
Yes, that's true. Yes. What's your take on women empowerment? I ask this because you really seem to be a very confident woman, having taken such a journey so strongly, because I mean, we all know how. We all probably also always hear about, the difficulties women find in getting as far as leadership and all of that. What's your take on looking at how far you've gone? What's your take on women empowerment?
Well,
was it easy?
I wouldn't call it easy. I think there are no easy roads for women in this world and in the society. And I generally believe that we are still in the world that is largely misogynistic, unfortunately, and largely patriarchal. And I mean, you have to understand, I guess, our background and the fact that where we come from as a society, no one really wants to speak about the values that society has entrenched in us, in thinking that a woman is far less, that a woman cannot be a breadwinner, that a woman cannot have a better job than a man, or an equal job, or that they are not entitled to equal pay, and all of those things. And I think it has not been easy, and over time it will really take time for things to change, but obviously they are taking the right direction at the moment. There are more opportunities for women now, in leadership, in business, and women are taking charge of many areas in our society, and I think there are great policies in place. I mean, the thing with policies is always that they're amazing on paper, but the implementation is always something else. But I also generally think that we are now in a society that perhaps because of education and multicultural experiences, the male gender has finally come to the table to accept that gender equality is something that will happen in our lifetime, and you can either be a part of it or be sour that you have been left behind. And I can really say that I'm really glad to see that there is a huge percentage of men in our society that do support that call, and who are really encouraging inclusivity. I mean, if you look at our law firm, the majority of our legal practitioners are female.
Wow.
So I think that shows something. The majority of our legal practitioners are under 35. That also shows something in terms of youth development and youth empowerment as well, and youth opportunities as well. So I think it's attributed to leaders who are really stepping up and owning this brand of empowering women. And I think our society will definitely go far. And of course, I'm a staunch supporter of women empowerment. I am one after all. And
all women, female debaters are, by the way.
I think it comes from the idea that we are amazing and we can do amazing things if the opportunities are provided to us. So, you know, it's not like we support women empowerment and then we slack.
But never has it come throughout your journey where it was a thing of, no, you can't be in this position because of you are a woman. Never has it become the challenge across your journey?
I think that perception has existed in people's idea of can we support her because she's a woman, and you know, I think one of the greatest challenges for women, especially young girls, is that when people look at whether they can support you, they look at the possibility of you falling pregnant before you can achieve something. Yes, and because pregnancy has always been a setback for women in our society, that becomes a problem, because then people are like, yeah, okay, we'll take a boy. You know, like if we're like, oh, we're going to fund someone, and then we're like, oh, okay, they'll take a boy because then the boy is likely to finish university in his 4 years or whatever. So I think those things you will encounter in life at one point or the other. You will be judged on the basis of your gender. It will always be a consideration. Will she not what if she has a baby? If she gets married, will her efforts not go down or whatever, or the other responsibilities that she has? And I think those questions are always at the back of the mind of people at one point or the other, but I think it's more the fact that you are able to prove yourself as a person, that no matter what circumstances may change in your life, you will always show up for what you're required to show up. So Yeah, unfortunately, those challenges remain. I don't think they're something we can change overnight, but they are something we can definitely improve.
Yeah, let's get to the interesting things. Tell us about when you and Tate Job met. Yes, you're gonna have to take a sip for that one. That's a very interesting story because, I mean, look at you. You both seem to be doing very well. But then one interesting story is really to find out what it was like to be with him or where it all started.
Am I allowed to laugh because this is funny? I'm sorry. How did we meet? In the UNAM corridors.
Oh wow! Oh wow!
Look, I think we were friends on Facebook before we actually met in person. There was this one article he wrote in the New Era about student leaders being dealers in hope or something. Oh, wow. And I thought it was an interesting article, and so then we became friends on Facebook, and we were just talking about his writing, which I thought was interesting because at that point in my life I have met very few people who were radical in their thoughts. And if you ask my parents, I'm the most radical child they have because my ideas are always in the opposite direction. So I found that to be interesting, and I think we met one day in the UNAM corridors, 2010. And it's like, oh, you are that guy. Oh yes. Oh, you are that girl from Facebook. Yes. And then I think we were just talking because I mean, he's a political scientist and I'm a law student at that time, first year, and we had interesting conversations about politics, life, the village, and anything else in between. And he's a great speaker. I'm better, but that's a debate for another day. There we go. So yes, I think that's how we met, and then we would just have interesting conversations every now and then. Because I think he was studying in South Africa at the time, so he would come to Namibia. Yeah, well, I would run into him in UNAM corridors at the time. Yeah.
When did the love interest get into play? When did it stuck?
Well, who told you it's a love interest to begin with?
Well, why wouldn't it be? I mean, look at where you end up. You guys are married now, so it should be.
Well, I mean, I had always thought he was an interesting guy because, I mean, he thinks in a very interesting way. And I can't pinpoint when as you call it, you young people, love interest actually sparked. But I think it was the common understanding in ideas. Yes. I mean, in most respects, we are very opposite, but also very much alike. We don't always agree.
Oh, wow.
No. Sure. But we do think in much of a similar way. And I think for life companionship, that's what you seek. Someone you can build with, and someone who has a great understanding of who you are and what you represent. So I think it was that understanding that, oh, okay, wow, we actually do make sense and we like spending time together. So, yeah. So
that never got to a point where the both of you leading into politics?
No, look, I am not a politician by any measure, because I tell it like it is. I do not have time to sugarcoat anything. If I don't like you, I'm not going to make an effort to look like I like you. And I think politics requires a lot of a person. Yes. It really requires you to be very much in touch with your emotional intelligence, for example. And there's a lot of backstabbing that I've witnessed. I mean, I like I said, I'm not a politician, but I've been involved in politics and I've witnessed a lot of ugly things and that I do not like, that would compromise me as a person. I think I make a great lawyer. I make a great individual. I will not make a good politician. And I think maybe that's where most people get it twisted, thinking that you can make all great things, but for me the off-cut was politics. It's too brutal, it's too bloody. It's not for me. I'm not. I think that when it comes to politics and leadership, there are some born leaders and there are some born politicians. And I mean, my husband doesn't refer to himself as a politician in any case. He's always been an activist at heart, and his purpose and calling is really different and far from politics. If you'd understand what he represents, it's not just the idea that I must lead you, it's the idea that I must awaken you to understand what you can do and the power that society has to influence leadership in any given setting. So no, there has been no point of both of us going into politics.
Okay.
I will remain a lawyer.
Okay. Right.
I love the law. Yes.
Did you ever at any point feel sorry for him for doing activism work, being out there, because it's kind of scary and it really takes a very strong and confident person to be an activist, hey?
Sorry for him. Maybe you should interview my husband and ask him about his activism.
No, but I'm asking from your perspective.
Look, I'm just a woman married to a man that I care very much about, and my job is to support him.
Which you did throughout.
Yes, to make sure he's well fed.
But you seem you to be doing a good job, by the way.
Thank you. I think that's what is required of my role in this whole marriage, and to understand what he represents, that he's much more than himself, and he must serve that purpose. Otherwise, his life would not be as meaningful as it is in helping people and in really trying to change things. And I think that's traceable in the work that he's been able to do. And so mine is for him to come back home and I make sure he's fed and goes back into society to serve society once again.
And also make the society fit.
True.
Exactly. So take us through your day as you wake up to the day you go to bed. What is it like? Take us through an ordinary day of Taimi, Amupanda.
An ordinary day, I wake up, I make breakfast for my husband and my son's lunchbox, and then I drop my son at school. And then I come to the office, and depending on what the diary looks like, either look at papers that are due for filing, obviously, or pick up on yesterday's work that I wasn't able to finalize, go to court sometimes, and really just finish my work. Look, being a lawyer means that you are really involved in a lot of drafting, especially in litigation.
A lot of
drafting. So it's like paperwork and research every now and then. So yeah, that's really what it looks like. Then I go pick up my son around lunchtime and drop him at home, and I come back to the office and carry on with my work, consult clients if I have to, that kind of stuff. But it's really just court paper client. That's what my life looks like. I think because of the challenges of COVID, obviously, things have not been as amazing as they were in the other years that we've practiced law. But we still have deadlines. We still have so much work to do and so many clients to serve, and that's really my life. My life is a life of service, centered around my clients and delivering only the best type of work.
Any hobbies that you'd like to share?
I like to run.
Nice.
Yes, I really like to do that, and I used to write poetry.
Just quickly to cut you off, many people have different reasons why they do running and everything. What's your reason behind it?
I've always run since high school. I used to do athletics, but also it's a great way to keep fit.
Okay.
Because it's the one time where you are really doing something you love, but also keeping fit, and I think there's nothing better than that.
Absolutely.
Combining the two, and then I read books. So
type of books?
The fiction, non-fiction, both. really. I'm like an autobiography kind of person sometimes, and then I really just love all types of novels, really.
Nice.
African, international. Yeah, I've always read.
Okay. What would the present Taimi tell Taimi that's still back? I don't know what year I would put it, but still in Oshakati, still really aspiring to be a lawyer, still hasn't seen the city yet, still hasn't, really just curious about the future. What would you tell that Taimi?
That's a very interesting question, because I mean, something I've been pondering on the last 2 weeks. It's really, if there's a lesson that I've learned in the past, I don't know, year or 2 years, is learn more about wealth management. And I say that in the sense that I've seen over the past years, the past 2 years, I suppose, what COVID has been able to do. It has basically uprooted people's lifestyles and turned everything 360 degrees. And I think what we can learn is that we were not always financially prepared for a pandemic like this. And I think as businesses, we have risk management strategies in place, but for the majority of us, when you think of what your life could look like if you lost your job for 6 months, the majority of us would not be able to sustain the lifestyles that we have now. And I think that's a lesson I would have liked to learn earlier. But there's always room for improvement, thankfully. But yes, that's definitely the number one thing I would have told. I always say that had I been 25, knowing what I know now, I would have done so much better with my financial planning. And financial planning is something that I'm so passionate about. I think at this point, that's the only time I might actually leave law for finance, is that I've learned that as Black people, we come from a society that generally doesn't talk about money.
That's true.
That generally has very little understanding on how to plan with finances. And it's something that I'm so passionate about, that it's an area that I'm looking into empowering women about, because I feel like it's so crucial and we learn it so late in life.
All right. What's your take on mental health? Because I say this because you also just said something that really got me thinking quickly, because mental health is also another conversation that the Black society is really not having.
Yes, unfortunately. But I'm so glad that I've seen that a lot of people are now all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, really, there's a reason why, but are now keen to have psychologists, therapist sessions, or whatever. And I think that's great. I think it's a great place to start. But more importantly, I think that you and I are now the society that has to take this conversation forward, and to have a better understanding of what mental health actually really means. I think I've been fortunate enough to work in an environment that understands that if I've lost a relative, even if they're not my mother or my father, I need some time to mourn them and just to set myself straight. But also just to be supportive in many situations, because I think as a society we face so many challenges at present. You're at work, but now all of a sudden you have a sister who's at home struggling with something, and you need to be there for them, and no one really understands that kind of stuff. They're just like, no, but you have to do your work. But you cannot do your work if your family life is disturbed, right? And I think that as time goes, organizations need to be more accommodating, more understanding that as a society we are interlinked and interrelated, and therefore sometimes a problem that is not yours will affect your work performance. And I'm keen to see that obviously it's something that's really taking a center stage. I've seen even medical aids now are having mental health week and trying to offer support. Especially I saw during the COVID third wave, they were offering all types of support that they can. And I think it's something that will continue, and it's something that we should commend, because we are crashing. and sometimes we don't even know that we're crashing. And I think it's good to have a safe place at work, at home, to fall into, to say that, you know what, I just can't today, and that's okay. Yeah.
So you don't have any mental practices, mental health practices that you do to really make sure that you're okay, and you, wherever environment you enter in, you will make sure that you're gonna go it soothly.
I think for myself, and then maybe that's why I run.
Yes.
To release endorphin and
a
just
big healer, that one. A big healer.
So listen to music, and I'm all about my worship music. So
hello.
I think that really helps a lot because we endure great things during our days, and sometimes you just need to go home and release it on a 5-kilometer run, and feel better about the crappy day you've had, or talk to someone about it or whatever. It really depends on how you wish to cope, but also it depends on what you're dealing with.
Yes, exactly.
Because I think post-COVID, a lot of people are dealing with COVID trauma, anxiety, loss.
Yes, absolutely.
And for those things, we need to be encouraging of people who need to see therapists.
Yes.
And be able to refer them and support them in that journey. Yeah.
All right, nice. To a young juvenile watching this episode right now, I'm sure by now they should be inspired enough to want to become Taimi. What's your advice to that one that's in the law class right now, or that one that's sitting at home also hoping to study law, to be where you are, to become a director of a law firm? What's your advice to them?
I think something that has become increasingly concerning for me is I've picked up that our generation, or the generation that comes after us, refuses to read. We are sort of like existing in a world of passive intelligence where we think we are smart, or we think we know, but we actually don't know. And I think my first advice would be read and fully understand. Whatever it is that you are into, read about it and understand. And when I say read, I'm not saying watch a YouTube video and be like, oh, now I know. I really mean read and understand. Ask questions where you have to. And I think just be confident in yourself. The idea that we can be perfect human beings is really just an idea. But I also think that the people you look up to, or we look up to, are ordinary human beings, and we should leave room for error for them and for ourselves, to extend grace to ourselves in that we will not always be perfect, but we can really try. And I think we don't speak enough about the fact that you can make a mistake and life will still work out for you.
Exactly.
I saw a friend of mine shared something from LinkedIn today about how lawyers go to law school thinking that they'll just end up as litigators, and then they end up as litigators and it's a really horrible experience, and then they think, oh, I failed as a lawyer, as a person. But there are so many other areas of law that you could explore, that you could be great at. I've met lawyers who are great researchers, not great speakers, but they write well.
Nice.
Yes. And I think it's for any young person watching this, is the idea that you must find your passion, invest in it, be good at it. And if you are not good at something, it doesn't mean that you'll fail at everything. You just need to find your niche. And sometimes it takes time, and it also takes a lot of grace from yourself. But you really have to believe in yourself and be confident. And please read, because I get some letters written to me and I'm just like, what is happening? You can tell
this person
I'm just like, are you serious right now? Do you want me to take you seriously? I think first of all, take yourself seriously as a person, and just put yourself in my shoes. If I had to receive a letter from you seeking a job, seeking funding, must I really? No, guys, do better.
No, awesome. What's next for Miss Taimi Amupanda? What's next?
What is next? I don't know.
Hey?
Well, I mean, certainly I will be studying and looking to where I can redirect my career in 5 years from now. I could still be a director at Namanje and Company. I mean, I really do love practice. Or I could really do a 360 and, you'll find me in a financial institution 10 years from now.
Okay.
But it will definitely be in a law-related area because, law is my passion. There are some things you're born to do, and this is definitely it. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank
there you
you.
go, ladies and gentlemen. Taimi Amupanda telling us to read, and read. We had a very interesting episode today, man. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, and like, man, and share this video to all our juveniles watching this. Make sure we send out the words, and we also get to motivate each other. Thank you so much to the team that's making this podcast happen, the production crew, and everyone else. For me, John Ikondja, peace out.